As Keith mentioned, my name's Andrew Jabola. I've been with structures now for 10 years, actually, as of this past week. So, what I'm going to be showing you today is one of the tools that was added in 2401, the Layup Builder tool, which is a really incredible tool. Allows you to look at layups very differently than what you've had to do in the past. What I have here is just an example model that I'm going to be showing just to kind of demonstrate the capabilities of this tool in more detail. In the past, for each one of these zones, you had to define and orient an individual PCOM property. And it became a real nightmare when you wanted to say, hey, I want to add a ply here, or I need to drive this ply across a bunch of different zones because, for instance, this I had to add uni that went all the way back here, and this required quite a few different PCOM zones. And then if you changed one property, you would have to change all of them across the entire structure, which obviously is a very time-consuming process. Well, the new Layup Builder tool allows you to be able to define this a lot more easily and a lot more succinctly in the past. So what I've done here is I'm going to focus on just a couple zones of the wing. I'm going to keep the ply counts to a minimum just to kind of help reduce the amount of time of defining things. What I have here, and I've identified these by properties, and I'll mention why these have different IDs here as well. I have a forward spar, an aft spar, an upper skin, and a lower skin. So one of the things that we're going to show here, we're going to start off actually defining these zones on the forward spar. Many times you have uni drop-offs where maybe you have, I'm just going to pick arbitrary numbers that aren't for this particular spar, 50 plies that go a certain range, and then you start dropping those plies off individually. Well, in the past, when we would define these zones, you might have an Excel spreadsheet. We typically will size our wing spars just by basic Excel calcs initially. You would have to literally create, okay, well, I need PComp 1 here, property 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and you end up trying to manage that. Well, using the new tools Layup Builder command, which is hiding, where did I put it? Why is it not? It's hiding somewhere on the screen here. There we go. I knew it was in the corner there. We can actually create a new layup stack. Now we can load from layups, so if you have an existing layup, this will populate this and pull that all that information in. Let's see, and we'll show this in more detail in a bit. So that was defined in this zone here, and it actually pulls all the layups there. So you can start pulling in existing layups from old models. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to clear this out, and we're going to define this as if we're generating a new part. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this table, and we're going to work with this this spar here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new layup stack. This starts off a new ply here. For this case, I'm just going to add. We can add plies to this, so you can either the button here, the add delete plies, will just, add top, above, or at bottom. So you might add a couple plies here that we're going to define. If you want to add a bunch, you can add, for instance, let's add another 5 there and generate this here. Now you can think of this is your global layup, similar to how you'd be building up a full layup stack where you say, okay, the total amount of plies across the structure is, 30, but I'm going to apply maybe 4 plies cover the whole structure, and then all the other plies end up covering various spots but won't cover the full structure. So the first thing we need to do is define the global layups here, and it's easy to add and subtract plies. We can change the material directly here. So for instance, I might put some fabric on the outside. But we can also, if you right click on this, so maybe for instance, I'm going to add fabric on the outside here. We can right click and change it whether we're going to reference a material, apply material, or apply material here. So here I want these to be fabric. Now these ply materials, I don't know if Andy, we didn't discuss this in too
No.
much detail before, did we?
No.
If we do model laminates ply material, you can actually define your ply materials that have a thickness and failure property associated with them. So for instance, here, anytime I add this IM7, we know that we're going to change your thickness to 0.006. Now, the beauty of using these ply materials is maybe you're changing material systems and you want to see what, hey, we're going to now swap to a different material type. Like maybe we're going to use this, I forget what property this is from, and this has a different ply thickness. We can now change that and change this to 6. Let's say I'm just changing it to an arbitrary thickness. You'll see that it'll update the ply material and thickness associated across that realm. So this makes it a really great way of managing your material properties in the system here. So, it makes it really easy to say, hey, X material system is not available. We need to swap this to something else. So let's go ahead and change that. And we can change that thickness. You don't have to go manually update it across your entire system.
So those are like materials that are under your material.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the main thing is that now you have a material and thickness associated with each other.
Okay.
So, and now you reference like here,
Yeah.
you'll see when I change this, I can reference that fabric or uni property, and then I can change that globally across the structure.
Before that only happened with global plies, right?
I believe so. And
Yeah.
I actually am not a user of global plies that much in Femap.
Yeah.
If you had them fully defined, yeah, you could certainly get them to work like that.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just to show some of the other options here, I'm going to go ahead and just create another fabric. Right click, we'll use apply material fabric here. We're just going to throw 4 plies of uni here. So right click, grab 4 of those plies, grab uni here, do the same thing here. And then change this to R45 directions. If we want to duplicate multiple rows, we can grab those plies and duplicate, and maybe we want them at the bottom of our selection there. Oops, I forgot to grab one. I don't know. Do we have to select the rows, or can you just do this, Andy?
You're gonna find out.
We'll find out. Oh, there you go.
Do you just have those two materials up there in your material drop down? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are his climates.
These are
Those are your materials.
Fine.
these are ply
Even though
material.
when you select the material, it shows you a whole bunch, but it automatically adds those.
No, you had to generate your ply materials using the ply material manager.
Okay, gotcha.
So to get to that, right click Apply Material Manager, and you have your different settings here.
Okay.
And the nice thing is like, let's say you do have some core sitting in here. I can still, for instance, go in here. Let's add a buff selection. And I want this to be, I'm going to use this core here, and I'm going to make this 0.125, 0.25, let's make it 2.5 inches thick. I don't know what the scale is. It's obviously a manned aircraft, so it's much bigger than this, but this example. So here, you can still combine the two sets together. You can also title these as well, so if you have maybe, this is a spar. Let's see if copy works all the way across down here. No, it doesn't.
Fill down. No.
Right click, fill down. Now, one of the things you can do is copy to a clipboard. And this is actually how I edited one in the past is, I would do this and create spar all the way down, and I would add other layups here. And then you can copy from the clipboard. I'm going to actually show this a little bit later on one of the other things. Unfortunately, that doesn't work with ply material. It only works with material. One of the recommendations I have.
Yep. I know.
Yep. All right. So now let's go ahead and define this information in the model here. So what we can do is we can actually say, all right, these outer plies, actually, let's have the fabric cover everything. So we're going to control select those rows here, select elements, And we're just going to grab all of this information here. We're going to put those plies on the edge here. And if we click this button here, we can show selected elements, outline, or apply fiber direction. If we click the highlight button, you'll see when we click this, it will actually highlight the elements that those are on. We're going to show this more for the uni here shortly that we're going to add into the spar. Again, as mentioned earlier, we can also do it for outline elements. Now, there's not much to see here. This will be more interesting, I think, when we define the wing and some of the other options of the model as well. Finally, apply fiber direction, again, because it's everything. It's kind of making a mess right now. So now, let's say for a uni, I'm going to go ahead and hide some elements. Now, when I did this, just to show how I hid these elements, I used the draw erase command. I don't know if everybody uses this. It's been in there for a while now. We're going to do pick by faces, and we're going to hide the shear web because I want to only apply the uni on the top and bottom here. Try to get that view circle so I can show this easily. So now when it comes to defining a spar, it becomes really easy to define drop-offs. Here, maybe the first set of plies is going to be the whole set. And then the second set, you might have a drop-off. And here I can use the around plane. And I might say the first plies go between minus 150 to 150. So we're going to define that. Second set, pick around plane between minus 148 to 148. And so now we're defining those drop-offs, and we can cleanly define this on the model here. So probably guys who've done any layups on aircraft probably know trying to define spar uni patterns across the entire model makes this really difficult.
You're doing pick what? Pick what?
I'll show you. Minus 144.
Distance plane. Okay.
Yeah, so pick around plane. Select elements. Pick around plane. Using the ZX plane as my reference point, and then defining from that region.
Okay.
There's probably a way we could API this.
No, I think somebody on the forum just asked for our current co-op. I might have made something.
So that made it really easy. I've used this on some actual programs to define all my uni layups on the structure. I'm just going to define to complete it here with the final bit here. So now, again, I'm going to unhide those elements, so you can turn on the unhide and hide there. We can turn on our highlight command, and we can see where those plies exist on the model. So you'll see, we start seeing the drop-offs there. Here's the rest of it as well, just defined for speed's sake. Again, we can show the ply fiber direction, which is probably more interesting with uni. And so you can kind of see that defined in the model right there.
Where did you select your fiber direction, or where? Or there?
So outline selected elements. Apply fiber direction, same thing. We can also do a preview element layups. So I can say, hey, what is the layup in this region? Well, we have core. Actually, I don't want core there. I'm going to right click and clear the core because I don't want that there at the moment. And preview element or preview elements there. So you can kind of see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 fabric, and the 4 applies a uni in that region. But if we go to the outer portion of the structure and do that same command, you can see that we only have, the 4 applies of fabric here, but our uni is dropped off in that region.
So you're showing this spar as green, but is there a way to see it in colors for the layups?
Once I randomize the properties and generate
Okay,
that, I just haven't
Yep,
done that
Yep,
yet.
got it.
Are you wanting to see the, well, yeah, no, you'd have to generate the properties
Yep.
first.
Got it.
So here I can add core as well. Just because I'm going to simplify the selection process, I'm just going to grab the center section here. Obviously, this is not how you would define it. This is not an example of an actual wing. This is just an example for the sake of demo purpose. But you can see our core is in that region. Obviously, you could define that throughout as needed. So now, the next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and check the ply info. Here we have no errors, which is good. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and build layups. Now remember, I have this specified as a 20,000 range, and this might, talking to Andy, this may have been unintentional, but the reason I've labeled these is that I want the properties to populate into that region. So I'm going to hit build layups. This is going to create 8 properties for those 320 or 3,600 elements. And you'll see now it is actually generated all the different laminate properties here. So what I'll do is I'll click color, randomize, and you'll see now we have our drop-off zones in the model here, our different properties and layups, everything defined very quickly on the model here. Now what I'll do is I'm going to save this layup stack. I'm going to call this forward spar v2 just to keep that. And so let's say, we're doing stuff, we run our analysis and we realize, oh great, we need to actually increase this union to that region there. So what we can do is we can go back to Tools, Layup Builder, reload that stack. We're going to grab the V2 spar and be like, all right, these guys here, we need to actually expand that a little bit here. So since I already had the draw erased, I'd go ahead and re-erase those elements and be like, hey, now we realize that we actually had a little bit more further of a range we need to grab. So I'm just going to grab, now I'm just grabbing randomly. I'd be much more strategic about it, obviously, in the real system. Hit yes, update those elements. So now they're expanding to there, and then go ahead and regenerate those properties. And then recolor, randomize. And you'll see now we've expanded that spar range. So this makes it really easy to expand your fabric regions and update your model right on the fly.
You did that check and it showed all green. Is there any kind of common error that you encountered, maybe a common pitfall we need to look out for?
Andrew, just clear your thickness for your core there. Yeah, like let's just say you did that. And then say okay.
So yeah, just
cruise over it.
all right. So yeah, we can see here, and Andy was mentioning this. I don't know if this Jabru thing picked it up. And when I checked the error, I cleared the thickness, got rid of that. And when we did this, you can see we have invalid thickness. So it's like, okay, we need to change that. And then now if we do that check again, it should clear. And then we can go ahead and hit the generate button and build up the layups there as necessary.
That build layups button, that created your properties?
Yes. So this created now all the different P comps without having to, instead of you having to manage, all right, this property zone here is P comp 1, it has this, and then it's P comp 2, 3, 4, 5. You now have generated this more like you would actually build it.
It's creating properties and a layup as well.
Yes.
Does it automatically link the IDs of them, or does it just put a random ID to the layout and the property?
It's a random ID.
Random.
Which is why for at least the SDA internal team, there is an API I can hand you, which is a tool that I have called a layup property matcher. You specify this, and those not part of our team, we can chat. And this will automatically create and match those layups to those properties. And I use this routinely for my own workflows.
Yep.
So it just gives the same name to the property as it would.
Yep. Another thing though is that in the definition, I think this is added in 2406. Right now, it is using failure property for the failure theory. I know Andy and I just talked about this.
Yeah.
In 2401, you have to offset bottom surface. That's now handled in, I think, the options command.
Yep.
But also filling out the, right click, edit. The bond shear allowable is another thing obviously needed for some of the failure theories. And then renaming all of these too. It'd be nice to put them in a folder or rename them.
But it's you're selecting the options where? Where are you selecting those options?
It's
in the layup.
It's down in the layup builder.
So
In
layup
the
builder.
layout. Okay, gotcha.
So here I'm gonna reload that stack and edit options.
Oh,
They will be added in here. Hopefully the shear,
Down there in the corner.
yeah. So that's 2406.
And that'll have all of the, like, reference stuff as well.
It only has offset bottom surface and randomized property color, but it can have the rest of those pretty darn easy. Just didn't think you'd want to apply all those same things for every layup for every layup and property combination that you were creating. It didn't occur to us that you'd want to set all that. For reference temperature now, it does make sense to me. For bond shear allowance, maybe not.
failure criteria, right?
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
So
This
Can
is
I
a,
ask about the SPAR, you have 30 titles called SPAR. Is there something that would be typical with a SPAR that would need every ply to have a title? Or is there?
you don't
something-
need a title. That was just to
It
help
would be
me.
like P1, P2, P3, right? I mean, you look at
Yeah.
a drawing,
Mhm.
ply table, each ply has a ply number.
Yeah,
I use that for ply numbers.
okay, so
Yeah,
you
yeah.
call it ply by ply number.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Then in the drop off, you see them disappear and stuff.
It's gonna make more sense when I do this wing the skins on the
got it.
wing. Why
because, this SPAR, copying it down a whole bunch of times just seemed painful, but I could see the ply one, ply two.
yeah, no, it's more
And
for
then to
the,
see the drop offs would be kind of cool too.
Whenever you edited the reading, and then regenerated properties, did that overwrite existing ones or did it?
it overwrote the existing ones that are referenced by those elements.
Okay.
So, as I was gonna show here, again, for the interim, because I ran into having to change offset bottom surface, change this to Hoffman and fill this out. I wrote a tool, again, internal, and if people have questions, we might be able to share it. I have a layup property fixer where I specified the laminate property, and this is kind of trying to hint to the Femap team. It'd be nice to have a global rename where I could call this forward spar and specify here my bond shear allowable. And now you'll see I have it where it renames it to the zones here, saying this is just the zones for that part. And it also changed it to Hoffman because we're typically using Hoffman here internally. So, but having these options would be helpful. I don't know if the rest of the SDA team would probably agree with that for most of our programs. So, all right. So let's go ahead and show now the skin. Now the skin, I do have ribs as well that are referenced in here. And this is where kind of titling the layups became useful. So what I'm going to do is layup builder. Now I set this up last night where I already have the upper skin defined. And mainly here I have the skin plies defined, and I also have rib. And this is kind of helping identify why I had titles, because you're going to define on the skin layup, you're going to have the skin. You might have a case of regions where there's other interfaces that cover that. And you might want to be able to identify those easily, which is why this is like rib 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the 5 plies for the rib, and this is for the skin. I'm going to show just the element preview where you can see 2 of these plies cover 4 of the elements, 4 of these plies cover all the rest of the rib regions. Here I have, fabric. The outer plies cover the outer part of the skin. The inner plies only cover part of the internal part of the skin. And then I also have core defined as well throughout the parts. So in this case, I'm going to do a check here. What's interesting is there's elements in multiple disconnected regions. So this is saying check element carefully. I assume this is because I have my skin zone separated into 3 separate meshes.
And you have your ribs in here too.
Yeah, and the ribs are also defined throughout.
It's trying to tell you that you're actually, you're mixing multiple zones at once. What you're looking for.
So with this, I've already generated this already just to kind of show an example of another portion of the model. So I can go ahead and generate the layups here. Now again, base layup 30,000. It's going to generate 7 properties. You'll notice conveniently it generates that into the model here. And if I right click and randomize the colors, again, an option that's set up, you can see now that I have the zones pretty well defined for rib zones. So if I were to modify and edit one of these layups here, you'll see that we have the 4 skin, it's either 2 or 4 skin plies. And then we have our rib plies after that. And that actually, this is 4 skin plies, and then it's a rib right there.
So if you were to edit that layup, like change plies around and then go back to the layup builder and reset up things with zones and then reapply and like remap, would that delete, like, would it overwrite that layup that you had just edited, or would it just create new layups?
It should overwrite, I think.
No,
Does,
I think you're just getting lucky. It should be making new ones.
so let's say I'm going to add, let's say I find that I need more reinforcement in the center.
Well, I'm saying you do this out of the workflow, like you go out of the layup builder and you just manually edit one of those layups in like just a standard.
Oh.
No way.
Yes. It's not going to update anything in the original layup builder. Essentially, the layup builder is a one-way process. You generate the layup and you throw it out there. There have been times where like, okay, I'm going to edit manually a zone and then later I'll go fix it later.
Yeah.
But in this case, like usually it's probably you can edit in here and change properties, expand zones manually like we do traditionally. But in the case of, probably it's like later we're going to be like, okay, we want to add an additional ply here. So I'm going to go on the upper skin. I'm going to say, let's duplicate this ply. Let's do above selection. And I'm going to add this reinforcement, select elements. And I'm going to just add this reinforcement to the center section of the model. And now what I can do is check the zones again. It's giving me that same error. Elements across multiple disconnected regions, hit build layups. And now you'll see it's created 10 properties. And it seems like it's keeping it pretty well in that region there.
Okay, but it's just, at the very least, it's like deleting the old properties, remaking them and applying them to possibly new element zones.
Based off what I'm seeing, yes. I don't know how, I haven't pushed it that hard. Andy, I don't know what your experience is with
It's doing that. That seems like it's just
Lucky.
lucky. It's not lucky. I think what it's actually doing is it's just starting from the active property, the currently active property, going from there.
Except my active property, I don't know what my active property
Your
is.
active property is, wasn't your active property 30,000?
Oh,
It was.
well, let's make
Okay.
property, let's make
Try it again.
the canopy glass that an active property.
That's another thing.
And here's my ribs, so I already have this set up. Reload ribs, yes. And so this is set up. I'll kind of show where these guys are. I have 2 additional plies on the outer, and then the inners have all of that. So again, active property is this canopy glass. Check layups. It's giving me a complaint because it's multiple zones. Hit build layup. Hit yes. It looks like it uses whatever the first property ID of your affected layup is. So if you want to be sure and make sure you're not screwing things up, reset everything back to the first layup. So like sometimes like this property ID here, I'll go through here and do a modify, update elements type, grab everything, set it back to the original, and then just delete that and delete its related layups as well. And reapply if you're kind of redoing a mesh just to be sure that you're not creating any additional properties on the structure. And just one last thing, because I know we're hitting up against lunch here. Let's say, let me reload this, and I'm going to make a copy of the upper skin. The nice thing is we can go ahead and copy this to a clipboard, and this is actually how I edited this in the past. You know, you can build your whole layup stack in here manually like this in Excel. So you might have a layup stack already. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and clear this, do a new layup stack, and paste that into here. Now this is, unfortunately, I don't know if there's a way to set up a tag for ply material. That'd be a nice thing to be able to set that up in here. But maybe if you're doing the Excel method, you're going to have an Excel sheet with your thicknesses already defined, so you can manually define that.
Probably just give it a negative value. Spreadsheet.
Oh, that's an idea.
It's, I mean, that's probably a very easy way we could implement it.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Negative value for that.
Yeah.
So
So
Andrew, quick question, when you're all said and done and you've done your analysis and you want to view it in the post-processing toolbox, right? I'm a global ply guy, so I view by global plies. Can you view by the title as well? Can
No.
you?
No, the title is just in the layup builder as you're building. It's not used anywhere because obviously ply 10 could be for rib 1, but it also could be for every other rib. So it has no, that title does not mean, that title is just for your reference.
Okay.
So that's, yeah, like probably, Greg, to your P1, P2, P3, you know, just so you know where you got everything going. You know, that's what the title's for.
Okay, got
It
it.
doesn't do anything yet, but I mean, that doesn't mean we can't get clever with it later, but we'll see.
all right.
And I only say that because you would have potentially P1
And
on multiple
Yes.
different parts.
yes,
And you might want to look at just P1 for your ribs and not P1 for your spar.
yeah, it does not, right now, it was just something that we did so you could
Okay,
have
got
a
it,
title in there.
Okay, all right.
And I guess you can right click here, auto create all your global plies right there, and it generates that. Again, I'm still haven't used global plies much in Femap. The only tool I've used them in is the Sim Center product directly. So I never really use these that often.
The thing I would always use global plies for is plotting.
Yeah.
So like if you had a core that spanned multiple layers,
Right.
because you have different advances and things. And you want to look at shear stresses on that core all at once.
Yes, I definitely see the usefulness of it. Our team, and I don't know if any of the rest of our group has used global plies too much. Right? We just have not pushed it yet. It's probably something I'd like to integrate into our workflow at some point, because I can definitely see it for, let's
Global
pull up.
plies are extremely helpful.
Yeah.
I would say they're extremely helpful. I would cringe if they ever wanted to get rid of global plies. Holy smokes.
No, we never wanted to get rid of them at all.
Okay.
We were just de-emphasizing the use of the P comp G. That's all.
Right,
I
okay.
mean, yeah, I mean, and maybe we should have called, I mean, it's two different concepts. I mean, for us, one, you know, you gotta have it all defined to get a P comp G, great. But the true beauty of Femap is it's really just used for bookkeeping for post-processing and bookkeeping for other things.
Okay.
So yes, that is truly a thing. But you can do a lot of similar things you could do with a global ply. From a bookkeeping standpoint, you can now do with the ply material. From a bookkeeping, not a post-processing standpoint, but from a pure bookkeeping. Like, I know my ply material that's called XYZ is always gonna have the same material and it's always gonna be the same thickness. I can't screw that up. That's the way you were using global plies, because we didn't have something like a ply material before. You know, that's the difference.
Well, if you have something in post-processing where you're,
That's still gonna be
looking
a
at
global ply.
if you're looking at a ply material instead of a global ply,
There's no, no, we didn't do anything with the ply material for the post-processing yet. So
Right.
it was only,
If you
it was
did
only for
that-
making stuff.
If you did that, that would be better. Yes.
Yes.
then we wouldn't necessarily need the global ply.
Well, sort of, yes. I can,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm missing the one point. So if I wanted to look at the honeycomb core
Mm-hmm.
only, and the changes because of the drop offs. So let's just say it's ply, 16 and then it's ply 10. It keeps moving because of the drop offs.
Yep.
What would I use in post processing?
Global, you could use global ply.
You
Okay.
assign it a
You
global
assign-
fly.
You
That's
assign
that's
that.
why, when
That's
they
what-
asked us
assign
to
that.
raise hands, I raised hands because
You
of the
assign-
global ply.
Yeah.
You assign a global ply to each, to the particular ply in each of your layups.
Yep.
And then it just does, and then it just goes and grabs all the things it needs. It just goes and grabs all the things it needs from the appropriate ply place and shows it all on the screen at once.
Got it. Okay, because that's what I was trying to figure out because I was losing track.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
to me, this actually makes it seem like global plugs are more useful with this tool. Because it makes it easier to set them up, because just say it's there once and it tosses it in every pickup.
Yeah, no, that's because I have not used them because I have not, it's just an organizational thing. So,
Yeah, no, from a, if I just want to use this thing, yeah, no, I understood. Got it.
one last thing, just to kind of show here, you can actually change the angle directly in the model. So let's say, for instance, our ribs were defined in an X direction as opposed to a global Y direction. We can actually set this up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to assign this all to the ribs here. I have a group already. Actually, let's show that. You can also select surfaces. So if you have your geometry set, a lot of times I split up my model early on, the model core and things like that. You can select surfaces, or you can even select group. So I have a group already for ribs lower. And if we show the ply fiber direction, you'll notice that let's go ahead. I'm going to set up, leave these alone, and we're going to set up the outer skins. Oh, there we go. Click these guys. Select the elements here, grab the outer portion. And then the inner portions is going to be kind of an inner reinforcement here. And then again, I have a group for the core. I'm just going to use the elements though. Make sure that's set up. So if we click on the 0 direction of this ply here, so I'm going to turn this on ply fiber direction, you'll notice that the fiber direction is actually still 0 based off here. This is actually based off the defined material orientation of the model, which I think I may have reset at one point. I might have defined the material orientations along the wing here. But then here, you can see that this material orientation is lined up with X. Now, the only problem I found with using this command is that if I do the build layups, it's going to create 1,404 properties. Now, I don't know if there's a way of doing a consolidation easily in the layup options here.
So your angle consolidation strategy itself,
Oh, multiple.
5 degrees.
Yeah, let's do 5 degrees and let's see what that does. 12 properties, so that's
There you
much
go.
better. Thank you. So now we've consolidated and it's going to try and force everything to 5 degrees on there on the layup. And you'll see here when I color this by property, let's see what it did. Because now I'm kind of curious what I just did. I guess here this might have been just slightly off.
Yep.
So maybe we should have changed it to 30 degrees.
Yeah, I mean, you can change it. It's a tolerance. It's not setting it to a value.
So here you can see the direction, the angles have been updated, but we did have the rib reference in a different direction than the setup there. So if we go back to edit, edit options, layup creation, let's change it to every 30 degrees. And then we can check that. It's going to generate 10 properties. Now you'll notice here, I'm probably going to be able to delete 2 of these because they were still selected. Or no, I guess it was still 10 properties. Color, random. I don't know why this is still wanting to be there.
So it leaves the material angle the same, it just changes the property, the layup angles.
Andy?
Well, no, it's not supposed to be, it's not toying with the orientation direction at all. It's just ones that are in that orientation, which are aligned with that same angle. It's what it's trying to do is assign that property it's making, that layup and that property it's making to as many elements as possible based on your tolerances that you specified.
So,
That's what it's trying to do.
so it's gonna modify the layup card.
Yeah, that's what I guess. So you set the orientation angle to the x-axis.
Right.
So you're saying that when you're making that layup, that your primary fiber direction should be in the x-axis, but you set your 0 degree, like the 0 degree of that element is actually pointing in the y-axis.
Sure.
So it changed all the angles on the layup map to make sure that those two things matched up.
So what I did here is I just threw the fiber orientation angle. I'll show the 0 direction this way at some random angle now.
Yeah.
So it's like this rib is at some cockeye angle. And I'll generate this. I'm gonna change the edit layup options. And it changes back to like 5 degrees, so we can get some random this and there. And let's see what this does. It's gonna generate 14 properties. You can see that regenerated that, recolor. And let's go ahead and edit one of those ribs now. Edit layup. You'll see here. I thought I gave it a really random angle. Oh, probably because I had it at 45 degrees, so just change the angles back to what
Yeah,
I'd
but yeah,
want.
so your first layup is a -90 instead of 45.
Yeah,
So it just rotates the angles by whatever the like difference in material direction is to that angle. Cool.
I'm just creating a mess of properties here, aren't I?
It's a-
Hey, I have a quick question. Henry, are we gonna get a chance at some point today, since it's already 12:27 to talk about FiberSim? Or you wanna do that
After
offline?
lunch.
Yeah, let's do that after lunch.
I have plenty of time.
Okay,
Yeah, I was gonna,
That'll be the first thing we do in tips and tricks. Yes.
okay.
all right.
Why, Greg, do you have a flight to catch or something?
No, I just wanna be sure we don't miss it. I don't wanna be
Yeah.
sure that.
No, I got it.
And then Greg, we can chat more direct about FiberSim because I'm actually also one of our FiberSim drivers here too.
Okay,
So I can swap over to actually running FiberSim and demonstrate that too.
awesome.
But that might be a you and me discussion.
Yep.
And anybody else who's interested in FiberSim, maybe we can chat about that too. So,